Well, welcome, guys. I'm super glad you're all here. What's up, Jersey in the building? Um, yeah, this is our second week of doing creative calls, Symphony, new Symphony creative calls. If you haven't caught last week's episode, we did it call. It's up on YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch it.
You can share the link on the chat as well. I'll share it. You can keep going.
Another thing that we're doing that we'd love to, I mean, really our goal is to make this as interactive as possible and build community. I think like creativity happens the best in community. And one of the ways we kind of want to like keep the conversation flowing is through our Telegram channel. So join our Telegram channel. Johnny, do you have a link to that? Could you share that in the chat?
Yeah, I'll send it.
Essentially, like it's just a group chat where we just talk about being creatives and yeah, it's just
Blake was trying to get fit off in the group chat the other day, and
they see the history is.
Wait, is Jacob on? I don't see you. Where are you at?
It's like hide and seek. Maybe pin me.
Oh, there he is, dude. I need to pin you. I'm gonna pin you for everyone. I've never really done this one. Pin for everyone.
There we go.
There's Jacob. But Blake, yeah, keep talking about the Telegram. I think the Telegram is a really sick idea. It's for everyone here. We can continue talking, and like I think last week there was several questions about like specific projects. I think that's like the best place to like send an idea for a project and get either everyone's like thoughts, and you can obviously get our thoughts as well.
100%. 100%. And there's always, I know we're always having conversations in DMs and group chats and just about creativity. And I feel like we learn as much as, as much as we get as much as we give in those kinds of conversations. And so kind of just ungatekeeping that and inviting everyone into those conversations. So join that. And the goal is to really.
Did you send the link, Johnny?
Yeah, I'll drop it in the chat, and then you can go, Joe.
Sweet.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Anyway,
perfect, dude.
Thanks for joining, guys. I'm gonna throw it over.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, thank you everyone for joining. And this is week 2 of our creative calls. Really enjoyed last week. I think the talk went really well. We heard a lot of good feedback from a lot of you guys. I really enjoyed the questions at the very end. I feel like that was probably my favorite part, to hear everybody's sort of thoughts after the call and everybody's sort of journey in doing all of this. It's really encouraging, and to be able to do it all together, I mean, it makes it even better. But so here's a Symphony Creative Call 2. We're doing it with Jacob. Everybody welcome Jacob in the chat. Jacob is actually right now, you're in Barcelona, right, Jacob?
Sorry. Yes, sir.
What time is it over there, dude?
8 p.m. It's not bad.
Okay, not bad. I know last time we were on the phone, it was like 2 a.m. and Jacob and I mean, I feel like I will say it. I would see Jacob's work on Instagram a ton. It would pop up on my feed a lot, and it was always really interesting to see like how he had connected design with Jesus, with God, with spirituality, with church, and it's funny because at first I thought he was like a church himself, right? Where it's like you see his feed and it's like, oh, like, because it was always like really encouraging quotes, and the design was really good. I was always really interested. Then we ended up like connecting probably a couple months ago, and we both really felt connected on continuing to encourage and inspire everyone in this community, right? We've both have a huge history of like, my parents are pastors. I think what's even funny is like Blake and Johnny and most of our team members that help with Neww accounts, we're all come from ministry, like we're all ministry kids. So I thought that was really interesting and really fun. So this call will be focusing on design. And here's like a little agenda. It's just I'd like to talk really quick about unity. And then Jacob will go over some like his history, inspiration, and discipline. We talked about this yesterday before we jumped on the call, and it was really good. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear it. So I just would like to start here. It's like, this is a good quote by one of my favorite designers called Tibor Kalman. No matter what your cultural sophistication or what language you speak, everyone can understand images. I think this is the basis of our conversation for today, is us knowing that everybody here, if you're a graphic designer, or if you're a video editor, creative, knowing that these images that we work on and we spend hours on thinking about making, the goal is to connect all of us together. And the fact that, you know, Jacob is in Barcelona, I don't think we've ever met in person, but we've been meeting virtually, but we're still really connected. And when he sees, you know, our designs, I see his designs, and I'm sure a lot of you here see everybody's designs. It's like, oh man, this is like, there's like a connection point. I think that's really beautiful. And I just wanted to start off the conversation like this, is saying like how important unity is. And that's the goal with Symphony, is that we're all sort of like united. I think about, you know, scripturally, like I think it's John 4:24, where it's like worshipers in spirit and in truth. And this feels like that. So just wanted to kick us off with that. And then, I mean, here you go. I'll leave some space up to you, Jacob. Here, started with some history, and then if you want me to move from slides to slide, let me know. But bro, the space is yours, and everybody just in the chat, you know, I see everybody hyping up somebody said Jacob Michael Jordan Salguero. That's fire, dude. Jacob the GOAT. People know you, dude.
I'm
so
excited. I'm excited. Yeah, it was my family. I love the little family pic, but I kind of I had a thought while you were showing the other slide about like the idea of like, really, it's all around communication. And going into history is like, I remember starting my journey as a designer. It was because a 80-year-old woman was making graphics on Microsoft Word at my local church of 40 people. And it was like, I did not want my church to suck, even though it was 40 people at the time. I mean, in every group has 40 people. I think we shrunk to 30, you know, but whatever. But I remember in that time, like, I found the love for design because it gave me a different ability to communicate to people that my sermons didn't. And as I progressed past working in ministry and now full-time owner of an agency and full-time designer, I found that like technically all creativity is just communication. And I found that a lot of times we get caught up in church where we think the creativity is supposed to be a helper to a communicator rather than a communicator itself. So I kind of just love that, like when that first slide popped up, I kind of like, a lot of designers come from a perspective of like, either this is for marketing or this is for, you know, trying to promote something, or this is kind of like, you know, make an art piece to grow something, rather than like, for me, again, going back to my history, go to the next slide, go back to my history. It's like, it all started because I just needed to find a different way to communicate. And I think when you start designing from a space of like, okay, this is so I can communicate clearly my thoughts, patterns, emotions, topics, sermons into a different format, it helps you clear up so many things. Like, instead of like, oh, how do I go viral? It's more like, how do I get this message clearly to people, right? Or like, instead of saying, how can I make this, you know, reach the right person? It's like, did people understand what I was trying to say through a design? And I think that's what's cool thing about my history, just starting like from the beginning. My wife in there, she was the person that kind of like pushed me to post on social media. I was at a space in life where I like quit ministry. I was working at a full-time dentistry doing graphics, like cleaning people's teeth, like on my day-to-day.
That's crazy.
And my wife was like, you got to stop complaining about, you know, not being in ministry. Stop complaining about like you are like, you're not in the same season. Like, just use what's in front of you and, you know, use it to the most that you could use it. And that's when I started posting on social media, and now we're here on a creative call with you guys. So I think that's a really important thing. And I think also, like when I brought up the thing history yesterday, when we were talking about this call, I think the beginning of my design journey was super connected to the things that moved me in my early childhood, teenage years. Like, I grew up skating. I grew up in a skate culture with like Zoo York, Baker, you know, Neff, all these brands. And like, if you were to look at my early work, all of it looks just like those brands, where it was like the Neff neon bright colors mixed with just like the plain text of Zoo York on a imagery. And I think sometimes we try to create, especially as designers, based off what's trending now, not what moved us in the past. And I think for me, it's been that way. It's been like Asashi beanies for sure. I feel like in the past, for me, all these things, all these creative brands, Zoo York, Baker, DGK, especially DGK, all these things. Like they had such a hold on my life. And instead of copying what other people were doing at the time, I leaned into what I enjoyed throughout my whole life in history of art. And I think that's what makes a lot of designers unique, is when their artistry, their design is deeply connected to who they are rather than what they're trying to accomplish, you know?
Yeah.
And there's so many people who are like designing, trying to accomplish something rather than designing from a space of history, of deep
Super good.
intent, right? Of deep like conviction. And when I was creating, I remember when I first started creating carousels was in 2021. And that's when like the actual CEO of Instagram was like, you need to stop posting graphics and pictures and it's videos. And I remember like, I hate my voice. I hate doing corny TikTok videos. And I was like, all I know is these graphics, bro. And little did I know, like sometimes like the way you reach and grow is just to do what's opposite of what everyone's doing. And that's why I feel like, especially now in an oversaturated marketed world, especially in the church, right? Like everyone's making graphics, everyone's trying to make their pastor go viral. Every church is trying to do something.
Yeah.
When we're deeply connected to our church's history, deeply connected to who we are, our convictions, our intentions from the beginning of why we started, that's what sets us apart and makes us attractive, like in a design space.
Totally.
That makes sense.
Super good. Jacob, question there. Like, I know we're not in Q&A, but
No,
like,
we could.
how do you evolve from that, or do you ever evolve from like having a personal identity? Like, I totally understand like you starting with like, you know, like for me, like Blink 182. There's like reference points that when I was like 15, they were my favorite thing at the time, and I could totally see myself at the beginning, whether it's designing or whatever you're doing. Like, that's the first place you go to. I would imagine though, like there's sort of like an involvement that you've had, or did you not? Or are you kind of still like referencing internally that like 15-year-old Jacob?
I'm referencing the rebellion, I think, because even like if you were to look at my page in the early days and even now, it's somewhat rebellious to what everyone in the church is saying oftentimes. So I think there's an essence that you can't escape, because that's kind of who you are. They get not aesthetically, but essence wise, where it's like who I am, what I believe, who like what do people leave when they have a conversation with me? How do they feel, right? And then, but then aesthetically, dude, I evolved extremely from 2021 to today. 3 children, own a business, move countries, right? And even like in that can evolve. I think aesthetically, what you like is gonna evolve always, right? The music you listen to, these things that you listen to. But you take the aesthetic that's evolving, the things that you're starting to love to enjoy, the new looks, the new design, but you never lose the essence of why you started and the kind of what you're trying to point people towards, I think.
Super good. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's helpful. I think you can go on here then, Joe. Next slide.
That's really good. I love what you're. Here's that. I mean, this is a slide that you had on your presentation. The world needs more than preachers. And imagine, I love this second one a lot. Imagine the people you would reach if you stopped being scared. I think that's kind of like, Johnny, as you asked that question, and your response was like the rebellious side of it. And yesterday, even, you know, you were like, you know, not enough people are like sort of convicted on the way they make a design. And how do you like correlate that conviction with like the practicality of your like, oh, design is for communication, right? Like,
for sure.
How do you, right, without saying like everything is bad or going that direction, how do you connect that world of like not being scared and still making like, you know, beautiful designs and still keep the rebellion?
For sure. I think there's a big difference between like a lack of fear and arrogance. Arrogance is like an unwillingness to work towards a goal. Like what your personal ambition is so strong that you're not willing to work towards it. Conviction is these are things I hold on to deeply that I'm willing to present in different ways. Arrogance is always presented in one single way, which is like anger, fighting, strife. Conviction is I'm willing to have communication. I'm willing to have conversation. For us, like my company works with, you know, we have 17 churches that like most of them are over 4,000 or 5,000 people and all over America, right? So we have so many different conversations around like convictions of what we believe what design should look like and how that's expressed. And some things that I think our team always will never compromise in conviction is excellence, right? The other thing is like we always say our graphics cannot look like anybody else's church page. Like we want to make sure like we don't look like anybody else. And I think these convictions are always set in stone, and it may change on various of churches. It may change on what that looks like, but we always hold fast to those things. And I guess sometimes when people have fear of like approval, like they need to have someone affirm that they're good or affirm that like their designs are amazing, they shift to just a please, and they create. I think a lot of church people can kind of agree with this. Like you can get to a place where you create just for approval. Like, all right, I'm just gonna create this because my pastor is gonna approve it. Right?
Super
I'm just
good.
gonna create this because the
That's so
creative
good.
team will approve this. That's called fear, because you're afraid of being yourself in for approval of somebody else. And when we come to design, when it comes to conviction, it's like that's where you have to always, every time you're creating, every time you're designing, you have a lack of, I mean, you have a you put in the back of your mind this kind of lingering thing of like, I need approval, rather than what am I convicted about in my personal design theme and my creation. That will always lead you to a better product. And I think there's always a way where as you get more seasoned in creative culture and business, you learn how to communicate that better. And I think that's where a lot of young designers mess up. It's like, I think it's dope and I don't care what you say, or I'm hurt because you didn't like it. You learn how to communicate why this is better than what they would have actually approved. That makes sense.
Did you go through that ever? Did you ever
Dude,
go
yeah.
through that?
You go back to the rebellious things. Like I've been through that. And I think it's always better to learn how to communicate in a way that the approver can understand that it makes sense for them as well. And that's part of learning like their language, learning why they choose what they choose. And that can flow from any kind of church. I mean, there's a million people that have different opinions on style and design.
Yeah.
And you just have to become really good at, this is the way we design. I want to communicate to this person. This is why it fits who you are, you know?
So you're saying the way to sort of arrive there is being able to communicate, like even design itself is communication, but you're saying you should be able to communicate what your design is before, like
Right.
It shouldn't just be like, oh, this is just sick. Like I like, why the orange, right? Why the dots? Why this font? It's not. It shouldn't end at just like, well, I think this is cool.
Right. And also just like the ability to understand why the people you're creating for, the approver, why they say yes to certain things. Once you learn that, especially with your different clients or your church, when you learn those things, you can help have that, like, once you create a product, my conviction is like, I want to make something out of the box. I don't want to look like other churches. Once you create that, then you can learn how to present that. Those are two different things. Designing with intention, conviction, history.
Okay.
But then it's like when you come to the approval presenting, you learn how to present with proper communication.
Super good.
That's
I think like,
yeah. I was gonna say, Johnny, what do you think there? Yeah. Go
well,
ahead.
yeah. I mean, I think towards the end of the last call, like I can acknowledge that like a lot of creatives. I mean, essentially, like I think that's also kind of the point of a creative and a creative person, right? Like it's almost like it's seeing what is it like? It's basically like seeing a preferred future for whatever it is in front of you, whether it's your church graphic or it's like you're able to see something that like maybe the congregation or your pastor or whoever, even if you're working for like an artist, like they may not see what you're seeing. So I think like the gap from what you're seeing and where that organization or the church is really challenging. I think most of the times, like what I see happen with young creatives is they'll come in super eager and like try to like change everything up. And either like they'll go two ways. Like one, it's like they're able to accomplish that because they're able to maybe like communicate it like what you're saying, or they just get like really bogged down and really hurt emotionally, which is also super valid. But then they get crushed, and then like 20 years goes by, and then it's like, what happened to that? What happened to that spark, or what happened to that like that perspective, really? And I never really like heard context. What you just said was super helpful of like also thinking about how to propose, or not even propose like a pitch, a sales pitch, like how to like present your idea, your design. Because I think inherently like it is different. It should be different, or it should change the way that like people see things. And so I think like, you know, a pastor specifically in this context, like they may not initially see this graph and be like, that is sick. And we've had that happen so many times, right? Or not even sick, this is good, we're going to go with this. And I remember that, Joe, a ton.
I mean, most of the time
early
it was
days.
like, yeah, most of the time it was like, this is so confusing.
We were able to do it. And one of the methods that we've done it is through relationship. Like I really genuinely mean this. Like I've realized like the thing that like kicks things to a place where someone can sit in that space and say, you know what, I don't believe in this, but I'm going to trust you. I've seen that happen through relationship. And then I've seen the opposite be true. If we don't have relationship, meaning like it's just super transactional, it's really hard for someone to trust you without a relationship. And I know that's probably not super scalable, but that has been like really, I guess, like important for us with whoever we work with, like also with like artists or church pastors or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I love what you're saying there, Jacob, like super helpful. Like I think the whole, like, I don't know, not even session, like something like tangible about like how to present ideas, I think would be really helpful. Because I think that can actually change and unlock a lot of people, in my opinion.
Much, dude. Yeah, totally. Because it's so difficult. I mean, I would say like the art of presentation is so, I mean, it's a different, I would say, animal or game, right? Like, because you could think of an idea super abstract, and it's like, how do you communicate something so abstract to sort of like, usually, right, leaders and board members and pastors, and there's no shade to them, right? Honor and respect for them, but they're very like not functioning abstractly. So it's like that bridge, right? And Jacob, go ahead.
I was saying, going back to just the beginning, we were talking about this whole conversation about communication. It's like if you approach design through like your ability to communicate, either feeling, and it's like, okay, so when I create this thing for this client, what is the client trying to communicate either to the congregation or to the consumer? So then what is this design, the intentionality behind it? And also it kind of slows you down and makes you more intentional when you are thinking of, okay, I know I have to present this and communicate this to my client in a certain way. And so when you're in creating mode, you're thinking about, okay, one is your convictions, but also what is this communicating in the end game? What emotion, what product, right? What political movement, what is it communicating? So then when you're creating, these elements are not just, oh, this is aesthetic and cool, this is dope. Rather, it's like, this is intentional. Because I know what this end game is for it. I think that's really important.
Super good. I mean,
but they also could create out of just like randomness too, in my opinion.
Well, I think that's kind of what we're saying here next is like this inspiration thing, like which is where I think you were leading. Like how do we stay inspired there? Like how do you, specifically you, like how do you stay inspired with, like, you are having these conversations, right? Like we've talked about like you having multiple clients in multiple different like types of churches. Like how do you stay inspired in all of that?
Yeah, and I think it's the crazy part is like you're talking about, 1,400 graphics a month minimum, and how do you get yourself, inspired?
That's how much you're making. You're making
yes, every month around 1,400 graphics a month. So your mind's like, all right, like how do I, most designers are like trying to find inspiration the moment they get the brief. And we were talking about this last night. I have an uncle named Frankie, and he got me into like collecting sports cards, right? Like super into it. And I remember when he first showed me like his sports card collection, he would pull up like a card, and he'd be like, hey, this guy was born in the same city your cousin was born. And he would say, this guy went to church with your cousin, or he would always have like a connection to these players. Like sometimes it would just be like the colors they wore, a moment they watched on TV. And that really taught me like how to be a collector. And how that connects to design is like, I think all designers should be collector of moments and collectors of imagery and collector of like words. And I found myself like, as I go throughout my daily life, what are stories that moved me? What are buildings or advertisements or signage that, okay, I saw it, it may be random to some people, but there's something about it that moved me. And that's what I started collecting over all this time. I started screenshotting, scanning in books, taking pictures with my phone. So my mind is constantly collecting inspiration rather than, okay, I got a brief, I got this idea. So let me just go find inspiration on Pinterest and then create something. Rather, it's like these things I already know moves me, right? This imagery, this building, this phrase, these things already moved me in one season. So that if I apply it to a design today, it's gonna move me it's gonna move somebody else.
So good.
So I said, be a collector. I'm a curator. I have a museum in my mind of phrases and imagery that has moved me and changed me. Just like the story of my uncle Frankie, such a random story that I will never forget him showing me these cards. But now, he died like 7 years ago. But now 7 years later, I'm using it in this cause, helping other people, right? So I think it's really, really, really important for every person to just be a collector. Just imagery, photos, like take constant photos, take screenshots, go outside, see books, see these things, and see what moved you, and collect that.
I agree. I mean, I think that's what we use to our interns, is like, it's almost like a content bank, where it's like you have a bank you can always go to regardless of what project. It's like, because when you're saying this, you're not saying like, oh, like make sure you are keeping certain images for certain projects. You're just saying like, no, throw everything in there, right? Kind of like anything that you see.
Yeah, I think you should, like, anything that moves you. Genuinely, anything that moves you. So like, for example, I will take a picture. Like, I remember when I first came to Spain, and in Spain they speak, and in Barcelona they speak Catalan, and they have these random spray painted on the wall. It says bombers, which means fire, firemen in Catalan. And I just thought it was the most aesthetic thing ever. It just said bombers. I clicked it, I saved it. Well, like 7 months later, one of my friends was doing an Easter campaign for their church, and I was like, you should spray paint Easter at whatever your church name is all over the city, just like this bomber sign. And like, everyone's like, whoa, where'd you get that idea from? I'm like, just walking outside, dude. So I think it's like, sometimes it's we overthink it. I think also sometimes we don't pay attention to the world around us enough and experience what the things that move us. And for me, being in the city, like in Barcelona, is like, I'm seeing signage, I'm seeing cars, I'm hearing stories, and these things I end up collecting or writing down.
So mad because they were starving.
Whoa. Mute her. Sorry about that. That's crazy.
But all these things, they moved me, like, in a sense of like, oh, like when I say move me, I want to clarify what that means. Move me in a sense of like, I verbally said, oh, that's dope. Or it made me like stare longer. That's movement. Like my body reacted to this graphic. Or like my body reacted to the story. So that means it's worth collecting, because I think somebody else will also have the reaction. You know what I mean?
That's cool. I mean, one, that practical of like, that's what moving means, but then also the idea that if it moved you, it would move someone else, I think is a really interesting concept. You were saying something, man, I think I lost it, but this, like, because you're saying go outside and look at the world, you're gonna see that. A lot of the times I work with a lot of, like, creatives just like me, and right, we're working on a project, we're like, okay, here's this campaign we need to make, right? Whether it's the Easter campaign right now, I forgot, I haven't worked inside a church in a long time, so I was like, oh, it's like Super Bowl weekend. And obviously we need to start thinking about like campaigns and like how are we going to promote, how are we going to display it, and a lot of the times, and I want to know what you think, but like a lot of times I've caught a lot of people trying to create something from scratch, like, let me just imagine something and then maybe something magically will appear, like the idea. I have a hard time with that, because I'm much similar to you, where it's like I saw that and then I saw something that really moved me, and let's just recreate it for ourselves, and kind of like referencing, right? And there's like a line of like, oh, how much are you copying or how much are you not, right? But like, I do think referencing sometimes is much better than trying to think of something like from scratch. But what do you think about that? Like, you're like saying go outside.
Yeah, there's like a famous church here called Sagrada Familia by Tony Gaudi, like the largest church in the world now. They took like 185 years to complete, just finished it. It's also one of the most beautiful buildings in the world. But if you were like to look at it, it's kind of cool to see because every layer of the church has different sculptors that sculpted different figures of the church, right? It's presented one image, but there's so many different hands that put that image together. And I think similarly, when I come to design, instead of being like, I'm trying to create this brand new thing, I pull these 50 million different concepts I got from all over the place.
Super good.
And I place them together to present a new image. I think that is so much better because you're also putting so many other people's art, so many other people's like mind, putting it together into one place. So it's like finding a typeface and a photography that come from two different artists that probably never would work together, and placing it together and presenting it as new can change the world, right? Or
100%.
like for me was like finding illustrations, finding different textures, finding different imagery from places that would never connect, people would never seen before, and placing it together. I think design wise is such a helpful thing. So what you're saying is right. Like I think too many designers are trying to be the next Virgil or the next whatever. I want to make something brand new that no one's ever seen. I want to do something that everyone wants to copy, rather than how do I use all these things that are already moving me, all these things that are inspiring me, and finding the elements of those things. That's the key. Because what happens is like we try to like instead of like just like actually copy pasting the actual items, is like what are the elements in those designs that moved me, and how do I add that into one cohesive design piece? Does that make
Love
sense?
that. Yeah, totally, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
I think.
Otherwise,
Oh, Johnny's here. No, you're here. Go ahead, Jay.
no, yeah, I think that's super good because otherwise, I think that when things get built from scratch with like no reference point, I think you can feel sometimes the void in it. Like kind of there's like I don't know, there's probably also like a spiritual thing, and I know maybe it's a little too much, but like there is something about like something that's been lived in that you like repurpose and you see it and you're like, this doesn't feel as random, and there has to be better language for this. But I think musically you see this a lot all the time, that like you'll have people like bring out new sounds, but like there's reference points or samples, like there's things that like are built on top of each other that like even if it's a simple sample that's like in the background, but you just feel it. Like there like we're talking about visual stuff here, right? There's like an aspect here that's like that's felt. And I do
so
think
true.
like Jacob, what you're saying about like, you know, seeing those billboards or those spaces there in Barcelona, like, and then bringing them there's something that's lived in. I don't know how to explain it. Almost like I feel like it connects from like where it was to where it's now, and it has like a different life versus it literally just starting from scratch.
Totally,
so I do love that. Like you know, yeah. Anyway, we can kind of move on to that.
I think one question I had, like, all the examples you've given, Jacob, are like going out. Like, I think a lot of the time I look for references. My immediate reference points are always like, oh, let me go to Arena or Pinterest or Instagram or whatever. Like every example you've given is like you're outside. Can you talk about the importance of that? Like getting outside of like just solely digital inspiration.
Yeah, I think the tension is this. I also love Arena, love Pinterest, all those things. We were talking about this earlier, like the idea of like fast fashion versus the new movement of like recycle, upcycle, going digging for that one specific piece that no one has. I've become obsessed, like even on the internet, looking at, you know, Internet Archive or looking at old libraries and like looking at these old encyclopedias, old graphic design books, and searching for references beyond, or even old photography books, looking for references there beyond like the same places. What happens is like what I've seen, like a lot of people use the same places, Pinterest, Arena, you know, whatever the case may be, Dribble, Behance, all these places, so that we all end up looking the same, especially in church, right? It seems like all our algorithm is the same, and it's like fast fashion. It's like, okay, we all have the same cardigan from Zara, it was $15.99, and we all have it. Rather than when you see like that old head with that 70s Carhartt and the beat up beanie, and they just look so sick. And I think that answers the question that Boaz is asking of like originality, is because like technically I don't know what's original, right? Like there's nothing more original than God, in my opinion. like what's original now. I think originality is taking whatever's in front of you and making it your own. That's what I would say. And
Yeah,
I think
I
a lot
agree.
of times we try to be like, oh, let's make something brand new, original, make it great, rather than like, all right, what are the elements that are around me that I can use to make it myself and then present it? For me, it was like I was a preacher. I no longer preach, but I learned how to communicate through graphics that no one was doing at that time. So like it wasn't that I was like original, like making a graphic, but my
Yeah,
originality came from how could I
super good.
communicate what I was feeling in a new way that no one's seen, in a way like it wasn't brand new. Graphics aren't brand new. Helvetica is not brand new, but it was a way it was presented that wasn't seen before. So I think that answers the question of like originality coming into play. It's like I think of that old Japanese dude with the 70s Carhartt and like the old beat up Doc Martens. Like these things he thought were cool and he placed it together as himself, and no one looks like him because he's more original, because he learned how to take different places, different reference points that he thought was awesome and make it his own.
So good, dude. That's such a good answer. I think, Boaz, I hope that answers your question, because I agree. Like, couldn't have said it better. I think here, I mean, this is the quote that you had, right? Look after your soul, consuming community, education to exposure, comparison. I mean, you could go on here if you want, Jacob. Like, because the slide after this, I think could help, because I know we don't have that much time. So I would love to hear like more cues. Is sort of like this. I think you talked about this crazy yesterday, and just discipline, because inspiration and like referencing and all of this is sort of like this abstract fun, but I think there's like this reality of, I think Blake did the math of like, if you're doing 1,400 a month, it's 45 per day, it's 2 per hour, right? Like
2 per hour, not including sleeping or spending time with your kids. That's crazy.
Wow.
But we're doing more than 2 per hour for sure. But like
the reality of that, like talk to us about that.
Yeah, I shared a story when I was in Madrid about this, about how in 2021 till today, I've made like a graphic a day. Now, it wasn't like something like I haven't made like an amazing life altering graphic a day, but sometimes I'll just throw Helvetica on the text to say I did it, because an idea was like I was trying to teach myself consistency, and I was trying to teach myself how do I show up every day on my craft and do something. And when I think of creatives and discipline, oftentimes a lot of creatives move based off how they feel that day, rather based off of kind of like I think creativity as a muscle, like showing up to the gym and actually working out your creativity every day. And that's where a lot of people are missing, I think, in a creative space. It's like you fall behind, like literally technicality wise, like because you're not showing up every day, or you're not showing up and working on your craft. It's just trying to get things done or trying to get things moved past, get things approved, rather than like, how do I take this skill, this design skill, and actually craft it and be a craftsman, right? So when I think about making creativity discipline, I think about showing up daily. I think about investing your time into like learning more about the programs you use, the actual design principles that you have, all these things. I think that's super important, and also doing it daily. Like even if you threw Helvetica on a picture of a face, for me, I'm like, you showed up that day.
Yeah, you did.
Right. And I think teaching yourself consistency, especially for me, like I've been in a space where like we're doing all these graphics. Think about Easter's, like hundreds of graphics a day. And there's also, you got to post on social media. Also, you have all these things. And you have to also, like yesterday, I posted randomly late at night because I literally was like, I need to create something, because I need to remember like the love of the game. I need to continue to create for my posts, or like I know I will slack. I know I will get fat, right? Like I will get weak in my skill the further away I'm not showing up every day. So I think a lot of creatives, if they learned how to already have a collection and create a process of like, I see these things I collected, let me just make something today based on something I saw. Like a good example is like, there's a really popular, like, Europeans love cigarettes. For breakfast, there's no eggs or bacon or pancakes. It's 3 cigarettes, espresso, and a croissant, right? Like that's our breakfast here. Not mine specifically, if you don't want to judge me, but whatever. but I think about like the tobacco stores, and I remember like passing by a tobacco store, and I was like, yo, that would be really sick if we turned that to say gospel. And like I guess the discipline in me was like I saw the thing, it moved me. So then I got home and I made it. And it became a pattern in my life where I see something is moving me. I saw something in a book or something in the real world and I wrote it down or I created it. And then I get to post it and it reaches people. So I think creating that flow of like, how do I, once I go from inspiration or collection stage, go into immediate creation, I think that helps whenever you have 15 projects. You're like, okay, I already done this every single day for the last, 1 month. So I can now do this for these projects that are all completely different because I already did it over and over and over again.
So good.
If that makes sense.
No, totally. I mean, that was great. I think doing something and doing it fast, doing it every day. I think that covers what we talked about last week. Like it is iterating. Like once you see something, like let's make it happen. And I love that you have the love for the game of graphics. Like I think that's it is sort of becoming a lost art in some ways. I think people do think more of virality and more of like engagement versus like, I think you talked about like you live in the capital of design right now, which I think that's awesome. Bro, super good. I think here we can, if we want to, I mean, guys, you guys can send Q&As on the chat. I'd love like, if you guys have Q&As for Jacob specifically, and we welcome like, even like practical questions, like what's your favorite font or stuff like that. If you guys have anything like that, I'd love to hear any cues for Jacob here. Johnny, did you have any last thoughts about the discipline thing as we get a question?
I mean, I love it. I think it's, I mean, it makes sense. Also, I think Jacob, why like you're successful and like you're taking kind of you're taking this like not just seriously, but like you're really kind of thinking about this, like you're thinking about your approach here, and I think that's really helpful. It helps you like grow and not like burn out even at the same time, like because there's disciplines to this stuff, so it's not like you're kind of always trying to get stuff like 1400. I mean, it is a lot, to be honest, right?
Somebody
asked. It also
seems
like you've got like your structure set up, which I think is really, really great for like maintaining health and like kind of these repetitions, these rhythms. Here, I'll go through a question here.
These are great questions coming in.
Yeah, being a director, how do you move away from surviving every month to actually thriving and creating out of a healthy spot? Is from Danny.
Wow, that's a good question. I think how I work, there's so many spectrums of this, because if you're talking about in a church, how I would survive in a church is I wouldn't do month-to-month sermon series, campaigns that are built out every single month. Like I would create seasons where it's like you're doing quarterly, so you could always think ahead and have breathing room. Like just practically, that's something I always suggest to every church that I work with. Breathing room also, I think sometimes it depends on who's approving, especially in the church context. It's like, is your leader constantly like changing things or everything last minute? One thing I do, like just a practical advice for the surviving every month, my thing I always say is I always save everything that's been denied. So when there's like, say I like have Easter and I made 15 iterations, I saved the 14. So then the next month we have a sermon series and we just flip it around. We mix it up, because then you're not, especially if you're in a culture where the church is last minute, everything is last minute. That's how I would say like to get ahead. But I think there's a lot more context behind what you would mean, like surviving a healthy spot. It really depends on who your leader is, depends on the structure of your church or organization. But like just even practically campaigns, saving everything that you would usually get thrown away. And whenever there's off time for your team, I always say create for the love of the game and save those things for later. That's what we do. So sometimes like we had this deal for small churches. It was $350 a month for a full-blown like Easter package on Photoshop, like L3, thumb, everything. And every single one of those were like ones that got thrown away from another church, because every time we create, we're creating with intention and then same design. We're not gonna let that go to waste. So we get to bless small churches because of things that we save. So I always believe in saving everything.
Super good
That you have.
Super good. There's another question here by Brody Bird. When delegating to a team, do you explain this process to them this exact way? It doesn't seem too boxy or structured. It's inspired and vision driven, meaning it's always changing. So how do you verbalize that to a team?
Yeah, so our team, we have the same flow where it's like, it depends on like the project, obviously. But for a lot of bigger campaigns, we have an exploration session that's only an hour long. And basically all of our team members bring in everything that they've seen, things that they inspired them. And then we just begin to play and then basically hype these things that we collected. And from there, that's when we begin to have a base of like essence for each church that we're going through. So we'll see, so for example, okay, in this meeting, Johnny brings a screenshot of a book he read, and Drawson brings a picture of a billboard. And as we're talking, like, oh, this billboard actually will look dope for this church. Does that make sense? But think about that in a bigger conversation where we have a bunch of items, a bunch of things that we brought together, and we begin to start saying, okay, here's the projects we have. Here's how we think we could work these things into that. From there, that's when we go into the creating phase and into, actually working direct with the client who will begin to tweak that into a final product.
Super
Good.
good.
Hope that answered that question. But
Yeah,
it also depends on the team. I always encourage every team, like, you could take an hour of your time to play. Like, go and play. Like, go to a library and like find every design book there and just start taking pictures of everything. Like, I think in church we have this really like anxiety between like, if I leave this office, I'm gonna get fired, I guess. Or if I leave like this space, like it's not gonna be healthy for me. But like a creative team that plays is a creative team that wins. And I think we have to play and enjoy and like see, like, again, back to the level of the game, especially in the collecting phase.
So good.
This one's I think this is helpful because we went over referencing a bunch. Camilo asked, have you ever gotten in legal trouble for using a photo or imagery that inspired you but you don't necessarily own?
Yeah, never got in legal trouble. Never got in trouble on social media either. Most of the client work I have to stay away from, actually like pulling something straight from the internet. So that's when we like either find a reference and take a picture like it, alter it to the point of non-distinction. I think those are all also options.
I also,
the people who just find a picture and they throw Helvetica, you can find yourself in trouble with bigger clients,
Yeah. Also, I think like we've gone through this a ton, like the context of which like you're using the product or the image or the graphic really matters. And a lot of times, like if it's for social media purposes, even if it's an image that you don't own, like you're not selling that product necessarily. There's essentially workarounds. It just really matters like what you're using it for is what we've found. And also like being able to like reference and like point to the ownership of that image if it's someone else's image, like, but it's honestly, actually, I don't know if I should say this, but yeah, it's not that big a deal. You got to be careful for sure. It just depends like where you're using it and
how you're using it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, altering is always the way to always avoid any legal trouble.
Yeah,
For sure. Yeah, no, I'm not a lawyer.
Hit the hue and saturation and just mess it around a little bit. And
zoom in, crop it a little bit. It's all good.
Here, throw 500 textures on it and you're on, dude. But
Benjamin, have you seen or have reference to a correlation between design direction and church growth?
Interesting.
No, I don't think, this is my personal opinion, I don't think there's one thing that makes the church grow. Because I see tiny churches with great design and I see mega churches with bad design. So there's a million things that go into church growth. Like you could have a great design team, creative team, but like, or your pastor sucks at preaching. I don't know. Like there's so much that goes into design. I think sometimes the great design and attention behind it does affect the willingness of young creatives' participation.
So good. So true.
Where like a church that has very poor like intention behind creative will lose their young creatives because they think that's not a priority, rather than a church that values that young creatives are willing and more eager to try to get involved. I think
that's really good, dude.
I think maybe just like a few more here. Elias, tips on building design identity based on church identity, especially church vision.
Are we talking
Um,
about logos or like actual like I
Certain
don't know,
identity.
like
I
day
think
to
like
day?
yeah, I think like maybe the world the church lives in, like is the church always posting, this font or this kind of imagery or these colors? Maybe it's kind of what I'm imagining.
Yeah, I would go. I always say go local. Like, what is your region? Like, what's popping in your region? What is the things that like look dope in your region? What are like also your demographics? Like, if your church is boomers, like honestly, like rock with that. Like, I
Totally.
think I think sometimes as designers, like young people specifically, it's a whole different thing. But like, we want to reach people who look like us rather than the people we're actually reaching. And as a designer, you again it goes back to communication. If you're communicating young to a 60-year-old, they didn't understand what you're trying to say.
For
So I
sure.
think it's not losing the cleanliness, the excellence, the creativity, the originality of like your design mixed with how you communicate to a certain group of people.
Super good.
Great. This is a really good one. Maybe we end here. Given your experience, is there any type of work that still feels like a real challenge to you? And if so, how do you manage that?
Yeah, I hate logos and like brand identity, like logos, typeface, submarks. I've always struggled with that because of the amount of eyes, the amount of opinions, and the amount of time it takes to get to that place.
Mm.
That's where I would say my biggest, like there was a point in time of our agency where we were like, we're not doing any more logos. And I think I guess ending on this is like, you should lean into things that give you energy. And there was a time in my agency where we were trying to do it all: social media management, video, photography. And we found our energy behind campaigns, creative direction, and design work, graphic design. So I think sometimes as creatives, you want to like do everything, and you should just lean into what gives you energy. And that will be able to, like, once you have that, you will give everything that you have to those projects.
So
That's
good.
great.
So good.
I think when you started out everywhere, to finalize here, Jacob, like what is your like what's your vision currently for I guess like design within the church? Like I know when you started there was like a rebelliousness to it. Like I think you've been able to like shape, especially with the amount of churches you're working with. Like I would say that you have a pretty you're influential in that space, like to be able to like shift, right, whether it's like every church is wearing Helvetica now, like where would you like to see it go? Like how do you think about that if it was up to you? And I do think like you have perspective in that.
Yeah, I mean, like vision wise, would love to see each church be intentional again with their creativity rather than just like doing it to say they're doing it. I think right now we're at a place where like, oh, we have a creative team and we're going to get things done. I think when you look back at the church of the past and the artwork that was produced out of those churches, we haven't let creatives express theology, Bible, truth in a creative space and let that be the main thing. Right now, a lot of what we're seeing in local churches is based around the singing and the preaching. And with our generation, like you're gonna see even more and more that like as people begin to not read anymore, and as we're getting back to a space where the Catholic Church created imagery because that was the only way that it could communicate to a group of people who couldn't read. And I think we're getting back to a space of sometimes, I mean, they're coming back to a space where it may be the only way to communicate to a young group of people or a group of people is going to be through design and art. And I think as a church, we are so far from that. We are so far from that. And I'm hoping as we progress, and now we're better than we were years ago, but we're still centralized around only one form of art, which is communication and preaching. And I think there's so many expressions, and a lot of these creatives are leaving the church because their gift is only used to promote the communication rather than be a communication. So that's what I hope in the future is, and that's the vision I see, is like artists being artists again, and their work being so great that the world around them can appreciate it. Just like Sagrada Familia here in Barcelona, 8 million people viewed it in 1 year because of like letting a artist cook. So I think that's where my vision is.
Really good.
Let them cook. That's
Really
so
good.
good, dude.
Let them cook.
Well,
Here,
that was super good, Jacob. But like, you want to wrap up here, and I know we had said 45, but I think it was super, super helpful, Jacob. Really appreciate you hopping on, and I hope
Thank
that
you,
people
guys.
like were not just inspired, but like really like take some stuff. I think you got like super practical, and I think that's really helpful. Yeah, I mean the Telegram channel is for that. It's just like a better way to like communicate, and like it's not necessarily email because no one checks their email, and just like a way for us to like kind
it's
of
like a chat. It's a chat
there.
room. Yeah.
The intention really is to like help as many people as possible, and like we don't have all the answers and we don't pretend to, but I think like in community and in conversations like this, like we're all pointing at the end of the day, like we're all pointing towards one same vision. Like what Jacob just said, I think a lot of people feel connected to that and their own versions of that, and I don't think it's like, you know, yeah,
So
this is
good.
why like we're wanting to do this. So I hope people like are inspired and also like really encouraged, like to you know, to have like practical tools to be able to like push their church and their organization forward, or their own identity at the same time, you know, because I feel like those are super connected. So
Yeah.
appreciate you guys. Thanks for the time.
Thanks so much.
Jacob, thank you for jumping on, Jacob. Thank you everyone. This call we'll email it to you guys, but it'll also be live on our YouTube. So
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. And next
All right,
week
guys.
we're gonna be back talking about marketing. So join us next week too.
Oh, marketing, huh?
Marketing.
All right, Blake. That's you.
Where my
That's you.
marketers at?
All right, sounds
Cheers,
good.
guys.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Jacob.
bye, guys. Trying to leave this. Can't.
This is where we see who had it on in the background and wasn't paying attention.
Bro, my computer froze. It's so weird.